Hey boys and girls, welcome back. I got another video here for you that I've been trying to get to, just finding the right colors. This is one of my most productive flies. This is the Mcphail Caddis. If you guys ever watched Davie Mcphail on YouTube, this has been one that he came up with. A little bit of a variation based on what he is doing. I am using here a 3mm bead. If you can see it kind of tucked in on the bottom here. We got eyes, we got antennas, scud back. The thread that I'm using here is this 5/0 crochet thread. This one came in like an autumn pack that I bought. It's a combination of tan and reddish brown. For the hook we're going to be using, this is an Orvis POR, size 12. Again, I got fire hole. These are the Almond Joy 3.0mm bead. For scud back, this is just brown scud back by Orvis. For the dubbing, just using a blend, Fox Squirrel and Spectre Bend. And for the wings, what we're going to use is Swiss straw, which is something that's a little bit different that I found obviously is just a lot easier to work with compared to using partridge feathers and things like that, for the wings that we're looking at here. Also, you can see that we got some, red eyeballs. These are just little mono eyeballs that are very easy to cut up and burn. These ones I made out of a 10-pound amnesia, which are pretty thin, but it seems to suit the size of the bug. Some of the other ones I've used, it looks like they have humongous eyes, and I don't know if that helps the fish want to eat it or not. So I make these also without eyes. I'll show you a couple patterns at the end of the video here. Let's get started, okay? First thing we do is put that bead on the hook. We'll just push it back there a little bit. When I'm tying these eyes on, I try to make the top part of this hook as flat as possible. It just makes it a little bit easier to line up, and certainly a little bit easier when you get to the end of the bug and you're tying things off. So what we want to start with, I have here, this is Semperfli Nano Silk. This is, I don't know, copper is what the color is, but this one's a great color also. Almost all of my tan bugs, I'm using this on, it blends in real well. Now when we're tying these eyes in, keep in mind that we still have to slide this bead up to where the eyes are, so we don't want to build this up too much here before we put the eyes on. And they're very easy to do. Once you burn them, just hold them in your pair of tweezers like that. Just lay them across. Put 2 loose wraps on, and they'll twist. That's okay. We want to work them up here to the front of the bug, and then we are just going to be doing a figure 8. And then this last step to tighten these up, this is just securing it so that it's not twisting. I'm not going around the hook at all. Once you get them the way that you want, you can tie this off. Tie it off behind the eyes. Like I said, remember to keep that as light as possible, because when we push this bead in, we want it right up against those eyes. Okay, kind of like that. At this point, I will adjust the hook so that I can use the bend of the thing to create the curve that you typically see on a caddis. Now I'm just using a basic black, I don't even know what kind this is, you know, a 6/0 thread to build the body up. And what we're gonna do with this is go the whole way down just past the drop on the hook. You want to create that little bit of curve, but you don't want to get into that hook gap. And then we're just gonna build this up a little bit. I try to go to about 1 mil before the bead. If you can see that gap there, and then go back down. That just is going to leave a little bit of space for when we, you know, put the thorax in. A lot of materials are going up to the top, and the problem that you run into with these mono eyes is, you know, you want them to hold some tension, but they're just mono. You know, they're not the strongest thing in the world, and you have to be cautious of how much you're going to be throwing on top of there. Now this, building this up, this is just a little bit of a taper. We don't want to go too thick on this because, you know, we're just adding bulk. But we do want to create the shape that we're going to need, you know, for these other materials when we wrap them. Okay, next thing we do. Take our thread or our yarn. This is what they call crochet yarn. You can find it. I dye a lot of these colors that I want. You can find the majority of the colors in the marketplace. But if you want something different, I would recommend looking into that dyeing, you know, your own colors and stuff like that. We're gonna hang that on our vise. And I got a scud back here. I'm gonna tie this on loose so that it wraps around the hook. And then just open wraps. Oh. Keep tension on this as you're wrapping it down, just to thin it out a little bit. When you get down to the bottom there, you know, you're going to want to push it right up against the bottom of that thread that you have there, but you want the yarn to be on the bottom of the wrap. So once we get those tied on, we're just going to tie this off real quick. We can take this off, and that's done with. Now, when we wrap these things in, the first wrap is always going to be underneath, okay? And I put this stuff on a bobbin just because it's a little bit easier to manipulate. So I'm going to go the whole way around the bottom here. Okay, and then there's going to be a sequence till we got one wrap over, and you try to put this thread right up against the other one there to create, like you're kind of pinching it off. But I do 2 wraps on the bottom with just a single layer. Try to stack that right up against the other one. Okay, and then after I do that, I'll do 2 wraps So we can start to increase that segmentation to make it look more natural, I guess. Scudback does want to wrap around the hook. You gotta try to pull it in the right direction. Just keep some tension on that while you're wrapping that up. And you can see how that segmentation is really starting to turn out nice. And I'll take this up right to the bead, just on 2 wraps, and then we're going to wrap back over it. I do this bug a couple different ways and sizes, but you can see how nice that segmentation looks, just like the natural. Tie that off here, and we're going to tie on our nano silk. And we're gonna cut that off. Put that aside. Okay, now it is important that you make sure you're placing this scud back on the very top as you're wrapping this back. I'd probably go back to just in front of the hook point there, if you can see that. Put some tension on it. Gotta be careful that scud back in this nano silk. I cut a few yesterday, pulling too hard on it. All right, now what we got here is a piece of Swiss straw, which comes in this package here, like on a card. And essentially, if you haven't used this stuff before, it's kind of like paper, but it's got good translucency to it. You know, if you ever catch some of those emergers in the water, when their wings aren't fully formed, you know, it kind of looks like paper. And that's, this looks really good in the water. It's not really the perfect color for the wings, but you can tell how shiny it is here, and it does give it that contrast that you need on the side of the body here, you know, based on when we're looking at, you know, some of these wings, like the finished product here. See how they kind of stick out in the back? That's all you want, that little bit of an impression. But as far as the Swiss straw goes, it comes in, you know, probably about 1 inch to 2 inches wide. I cut these in 4s. Essentially, I'm just going to cut little notches in here. Cut it in half again, so that I have like 4 pieces. And then the simple way to do it is just stretch it out, and it'll kind of keep the line that you cut. You end up with a piece like that. Okay, you can set that other stuff aside. And when we put these in here, the way that this comes, you kind of want to fold them up a little bit to create, you know, a little bit of depth in that wing, I guess is the best way to describe it. All we're going to do is put these on the side. Okay. I will fold that over that extra just to keep it where I want. Okay. Now I will cut these a little bit longer, and then at the end I'll go back and you know, trim this up to size and things like that. Okay, same thing on this side. We have to make sure that they are on the side, because going to be bringing this scud back over the top, and we don't want to manipulate those wings at all. We want them kind of below the back where they're coming out, and more on the underside of the bug there. Okay, after we wrap that up, I'll trim this off. Okay. And that's it. So the next thing we need to do is some dubbing. And I mixed that fox squirrel in. The fox squirrel has a lot of, you know, good black colors and stiff fibers, so that when you brush this out at the end, you know, it's just enough difference in color from the Spectra blend that it makes the black legs really stick out. But you do want this on here as thin as possible. You really don't need a lot. All we're trying to do is more or less just try to cover up all this mess we just made here, because we're going to wrap the scud back the whole way over the eyes, over the front. Go back to right where that scud back is. And that's probably going to be good enough. Okay, that's good. So we're going to pull our extra dubbing off. And we're going to tuck all that stuff in right behind the bead. It's important that you do that before you throw the scud back over. Because you do want to see, you know, the little bit of separation on the bottom side here between the bead and this, even though this is technically acting as part of the thorax. Now when you bring this over, I try to make these eyeballs about as wide as the scud back is, okay? So when you pull it under tension, it'll kind of squeeze down underneath, because we're going to tie it in front of the eyeballs. All right, so I will take the thread behind the eyeballs for a wrap or two, and then in front of the eyeballs for a wrap or two, just to keep that on. Now I'm going to move this up so that I can hang that there. We're going to wrap this over. I use my thumb to kind of place it. And you're going to wrap right behind the eye, or right in front of the eye, sorry. Couple turns. And then you're going to take one wrap behind the eye. So it kind of squeezes that scud back in, and lets you kind of see the narrowing of the eyeballs there, or narrowing of, you know, the face of the product. Okay, next thing we're going to do, I didn't mention this before, but this is something new that if you guys can get a hold of, this material has been great. This is horsetail, and obviously you can see all the different colors and things like that. I picked, you know, a nice brown color. And the way I do this, I will lay it right on top and wrap around the eyes. Don't worry about the length. We'll trim everything up at the end. Okay, but you kind of want the angle and the direction to be right. Okay. Most of those things really come off the top of the head, and the reason I like this horsetail for this, if you've ever caught a live one, their antennas are almost as thick as their legs, so it's almost an appendage. To try to use some of this little things like this, I've used, you know, like mallard flank that has some barring to it. When it gets in the water, everything kind of gets pressed together and it just kind of, everything looks the same. But this product, so you can see how springy it is. It is like wire. So what I do next is fold that next one back, and we're gonna wrap behind the eyes, a couple wraps. Make sure that these are where we want them. And like I said, don't worry about the length of them right now. The first one, you always want long, but you're gonna have extra on the second one. All right, after we get that in there, we're gonna pull that scud back and wrap behind the eyes one more time, two more times maybe, just to secure that. And like I said, you don't want to pull too hard on it because that nano silk will cut that. And I do wrap this behind the eyes. I'm really pushing my luck with this, but tie that off. If you make your eyes too wide, a lot of times, you know, they're gonna bend. So try to make them that 1/8 inch or so. Okay, next thing, we're gonna take this scud back, and I always try to stretch it down and kind of cut right in front of the eye like that, and then roll it back. So it almost looks like an extra shell casing back here. We're gonna take our antennas, and I try to make these maybe about 1 inch or so long, like that. See that length? And we can get rid of the rest of that. Now, as far as the wings, the most important thing is you don't gut your antennas off, but you do want to angle these from front to back. See how it lays along the side like that? I try to use the bottom of the bug as my aiming point. Can't get past that. Okay, you can see the wings on the side there. It's just a little bit of an impression. The back segmentation is awesome. And then we're gonna get a little bit of a brush. Rough this up a little bit on the bottom. Like I said, that fox squirrel makes this look awesome. Pull out some of those stray ones. And that's our finished product, boys and girls. The Mcphail Caddis variant. This color, I don't know why, it just catches fish for me. Usually big browns, and you know, why not want to catch them? To give you a couple options here, you know, I had used this crochet thread, which is actually round. It does not flatten out. That's why, you know, I decided to go with that type of product. And to see the difference on the bottom, let me find one here. This one, you can kind of see even on the bottom, you know, how nice that segmentation is. On that one, show you this one again. This is the original one, and if you can see that segmentation there, you know, on both the front and the back, it's good. I like that, the roundness, just because of that. So most colors that, if you want to get a specific color, I don't know if you guys have ever seen this stuff. I'm sure you've seen it in the stores. This is just like an embroidery thread, and it is a number of strands, you know, wrapped together. But when you wrap it around the hook, it will flatten out, and you can kind of see the difference with this one. It looks a little bit flatter, a little bit cleaner compared to, you know, the other ones. And I mean, the color is great, but even underneath, it doesn't really look like segmentation under there. And when you catch a real bug and look at it, you know, there's plenty of things that you can do, you know, with it. This one, just a little bit darker color. I tie a lot of these up without eyes, like this one, and I will tie a size 14 without wings. That kind of just a little bit cleaner type look, but it is a smaller bug. You see how nice that looks with no wings, just as the nymph type thing. And I'll tie an even smaller one, probably a size 16 with the same size bead, and the body's maybe half of what this is, just to try to get something down. I was on the stream yesterday and the caddis were just everywhere. I just couldn't, you know, find anything that was hitting on the top of the water. So you know where they're at, you know where they live. Take a look at these products. You know, if you can find some of that crochet thread, it certainly makes the bugs look better. Keeps that segmentation with it. The fish can see it, who the hell knows. But tie a few up, you know, let me know what you catch, and should do good for you, okay? Thanks for stopping by, guys. We'll see you.